Welcome, everybody, for the last season finale of season one, Frankie J. Raw. I'm your host, Frankie J. I'm excited to be here. 32 shows, season one, and today's the finale. We have my friend, my mentor, my adopted stepmother and life coach, Joanne Pariah, is my special guest co host. And as the special guest, I'm humbled and honored to have the one and only Judge Dan Winslow from the Fireside Show Sidebar. And I'm excited to have him up, and I can't believe that he's on my show. And we're going to find out a little bit about who Dan Winslow is outside of his professional employment. So I'm going to go ahead and invite the judge up to camera, and let's start to get to know who he is. And then I'm going to invite Joanne up too, because she's going to be part of this and celebrate my 30-second show of my fireside career. So, Judge, welcome to Frankie J. Raw. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know that you're busy, and thanks for being here.
No, Frankie, thank you for having me. I'm honored to be on with you. You're one of those great folks that just has thoughtful perspective. Whenever I see you in the audience on Sidebar, I'm always thrilled to have you on, but then also to look forward to your contributions, which always make good points.
I appreciate that. It's funny you mentioned that. I've always been judged very quickly within 30 seconds because I'm very opinionated, and I call myself a realist. I'm realistic about situations, and being trained as a first responder, I guess your brain sort of goes that way. You have to sort of look at things for what they are, as
Yeah,
hard as it is.
realism is not a bad attribute to have as you go through life. I tend to look at things through rose-colored glasses. Not, by the way, because these glasses are rose-colored, but just because you have a choice in life. You can look at things as half empty or half full, and
Correct.
I think attitude is everything. If you have a positive attitude and put out positive energy, it attracts other positive things in your life, and you can control what you put out. Can't always control what comes back to you, but the odds, I think, are, and my experience has always been that when you're a positive person, that good things happen.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and that's one of the reasons what drew me to your show, because immediately I have this ability to read people, and for me, you right off the get go from your first show, I was like, I like him because I could tell right away you were an authentic, genuine, organic person who, if I ever had to go in front of a judge for a bad situation, you'd be the judge I'd want to go in front of.
It's
So,
funny. I said to a defense lawyer, one of the top defense lawyers in Massachusetts, was a mentor of mine when I was younger, and I said to him when I was a judge, I said, look, I try every case like my son is on trial, and I try every case like my son was the victim. And he said, I said, I try every case like my son's on trial, but I sentence every case like my son was the victim. And he said, and it was powerful, he said, you should sentence every case like your son was the defendant. And the idea being that, compassion and empathy, you just don't know. People carry so many crosses in life. You just don't know. You don't know what kind of burden, what kind of pain, what kind of trauma people carry, in life. And so as the judge, one of the things that was challenging, but I always tried to be mindful of it, was just not to judge people too harshly or too quickly. People need to be held to account, obviously, for their consequences, especially if they
correct.
hurt other people. But I think for the most part, at the level of a judge that I was at, 70, 80% of the people that I was involved in were substance or alcohol related, and really to treat it not so much as a criminal issue as a medical issue, which is what it was. And if you can solve alcoholism, or if you can solve sobriety, you give people a real shot at life. It's their shot. They got to take it. You can't force it on them. But man, if somebody, a man or woman, embraces a chance to get clean, straight, and sober, I have seen miracles happen in my life.
I've seen miracles too, and I speak from personal experience. I'm a miracle because I was going down a really rough road after my brother died, actually in my hands. I did CPR on him. He was severely disabled, and the week leading up to that moment, two other highly respected people from our community died in my hands, and so it was three people in a week,
Yeah.
and it was a lot. And right away, it's just you can't process it. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. the feelings, the temperatures, everything. And it's amazing the amount of help that wasn't available at that time. It was just mind blowing. I was asking for help, speaking to people, and it wasn't really looked at like it is now. But I took the bull by the horns, whatever help I was given, and I took it, embraced it, and I owned my portion of the mistakes that were happening. Once you own your mistakes, I found once I owned my mistakes, didn't hide from my mistakes, everything seemed to go easier and it had a flow to it. And I can sit here almost a decade later and tell you I went down the right road finally. When that fork came, I went the right way. And it is possible. And it is, like you said, a medical issue. And people either get put there by someone like you, a judge, right? You're ordered to get sober, or the family or friends say that you have a problem and they feel obligated to get help. And then there's other people, and I put myself in this case, I wanted to get the help. So it's a want. If you want it, you'll get it. And
Yeah.
I believe that too. And that goes back to
Yeah.
me saying I'm a realist.
Yeah. People have to remember they're not in it alone.
Right.
There's a saying that no man stands so tall as when he, stoops down to help a child. Well, I think the same thing is true with fellow human beings. No man or woman stands so tall as when they reach out to help a fellow human being. And that's why I said that you don't know what people's crosses are that they bear. So I just
Yeah.
think that empathy and compassion for each other, and I see this, in public life now, with politics, with just interpersonal relationship, with road rage, everywhere you go, sort of the jerk factor is in full bloom, and we just have to step back and recognize that we're all in this, this blue marble together, and we can make it a really beautiful ride, or we can make it just a nasty ride. So let's just be kind to each other, and it goes a long way.
And what a great point, Judge, to bring up. If everyone was just kind to each other, how much better it would be. And I think that there's just a lot of the population, and this isn't just for my state or your state or the U.S. in general or the world. There seems to be an overwhelming amount of rage. There's just people that are filled with rage and they want to take it out on everybody around them. And welcome, Joanne. This
Hey,
uh,
Joanne.
Judge, this is Joanne Pariah, my life coach, my adopted mother, mentor, and inspirational person who has helped guide me up to my 32nd show here on
Speaking
Fireside.
speaking speaking of the fact that we're not in this alone, Joanne, you showed up at just the perfect time.
Yep. You're muted, Joanne. Unmute. I still got a
No, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I guess at a perfect time, because what you're also alluding to is sort of what I do. I mean, I'm going to just really basically say it is I help people find their purpose. And as Picasso says, if you find, the meaning of life is to find your talents and gifts, and the purpose is to give them away. So when we're giving, think about how we feel when we're giving. We're kinder. And we really need to be kinder. We really need to be more empathetic. I am so with you.
Well, I've seen
great
that. I've
point.
seen that, and I've seen that, and even though, and you're right, Frankie. There were times when I would have to, I'd either have to incapacitate people from being able to hurt other folks, and that's what
Yeah.
by the way, as Americans, we don't really appreciate our liberty that's sort of infused like oxygen around us. But man, if you think about what a judge has as one of the tools of justice is to take away your liberty, you just do not appreciate the freedoms that we have in this society until somebody has a cell door slam behind you, and man, then it's palpable. Then you can actually feel your lack of liberty. So I always celebrate how lucky we are to be here in this country to have the opportunities. By the way, not perfect. I'm not going to be Pollyanna-ish about it. With lots of room for improvement. Every time I walk outside my office and I see people sleeping on the streets,
Yeah.
one of the richest nations in the world. So we certainly have some problems to solve. But I'm so thankful to be here in a society where freedom and the ability to be our best version of ourselves still exists.
Yeah. Great point, Judge. Because for me, I appreciate the liberty and the freedom that we are allotted because I made a couple mistakes in my younger days, and I use a lot of movies as references, for analogies, and I'll never forget the line in the movie Shawshank Redemption
Yep.
where Morgan Freeman says the words, and once that door slams behind you, then you know it's for real. And that's a very strong and powerful line right there, because the one time I was in jail and that door closes and you don't know when it's going to open again.
See, it's
And
funny you say that. Yeah, one of my motivations in getting into this line of work that I was in as a judge and as a public servant was my grandfather was the warden of the biggest prison in Massachusetts. Still is the biggest prison in Massachusetts from the
wow,
30s to the 50s. Norfolk State Prison, MCI Norfolk.
yep,
And when it was created, he actually built it with the inmate labor. And then became the second warden, but the longest serving warden
wow,
there. It was called the superintendent. Norfolk was an experiment to correct men. Think about it. The Department of Correction actually had a purpose of correcting men instead of just warehousing people. And so they would, educate them. They would, give them counseling. They give them support. But importantly, they would give them all job training skills, so they would be
huh,
able to go out when they finish their sentence and have a job. And one of the things that they had at the prison was they had a debate team, an inmate debate team,
huh,
and they called themselves the Norfolk Debating Society. And in 1952, Time magazine did a story about Oxford University in England's debate team was undefeated for collegiate debate in Europe. And they came here to the U.S. and they debated Harvard and Princeton, beat them all. And the last stop before they went back to England is they went to the Norfolk State Prison to debate the Norfolk Debating Society. The topic was, should we federalize healthcare in America? And the inmates beat Oxford, the only team to beat Oxford in 1952. And one of the
wow,
guys on the debate team, not then, but earlier, was a thief from Dorchester, which is a neighborhood here in Boston, whose street name was Detroit Red. And he was sent to prison for larceny. He joined the debate team, learned how to think and speak on his feet, changed his name to Malcolm X, and came out. And
wow.
if you
That's
were
very
looking
on.
for examples about the
Yep.
redemptive power to turn people's lives around, just look no further than what happens when you give people a shot and you give them a
Huh.
chance.
That's
No,
amazing. That's amazing.
I
And
could add to that. I learned about that because my bachelor's and I have a half a master's in criminal justice, and Norfolk was one of the cases that we read, that we learned about. And also, the whole thing of recidivism. And you have to give them a job. The hardest part after someone comes out of prison is, how do they live? They've been so, you know, in a
I,
situation that you just
and,
throw them out. How are you? You've got to give them skills to succeed.
yeah, they become institutionalized. But real quick for those of you that are just joining, um, this is Frankie J. Raw season 1 finale, and we're lucky enough to have the one and only Judge Dan Winslow from the show Sidebar right here on Fireside, and my personal life coach Joanne Pariah. And no, you brought up a good word, Joanne, recidivism. And the last I studied, that's around 75 to 80%, and to me, that's just too high. It should
Too
not
high.
be that high. And Judge, I'm certain you would agree with that statement. 75
Well,
to 80%. It's
I
crazy.
mean, yeah, well, I mean, aside from the human toll, think about the economics. I mean, we spend the equivalent of a private college education every year, and what are we getting? What kind of bang for our buck, guys? So
Yeah.
the idea is, if people listen, and believe me, there's bad folks that just need to be incapacitated and
Yes.
given a timeout for as long as possible, and sometimes forever. So I'm not diminishing that at all. But most people, even those that are sent to the state prison systems, get out. Most people do. And so how are they going to get out? They're going to get out with skills. They're going to get out with whatever underlying issues that got them there are addressed, or are they going to get out madder, meaner, hungrier, and probably more bulked up than they were when they went in? And so
Absolutely.
we have to think about what we're buying as taxpayers. What are we buying for this $52,000 or so per year that we're spending on inmates? And there's a website about it's called Right on Crime. Right on Crime. I think it's rightoncrime.org, but it talks about this. It's like, guys, let's spend money. We're spending billions, by the way. Why
Oh,
don't we
yeah.
spend money in criminal justice that gets us something as a society that makes us safer, and makes us better as a society?
It's hilarious. And I know, Joanne, I know you're thinking about this right now. I did a show on specifically with the cost of day per prisoner per year, et cetera, et cetera. And why aren't we, as a country and nation, releasing inmates that were convicted and sentenced for nonviolent crimes and crimes in the way of marijuana? Why aren't we releasing these inmates back out into society since it's now illegal? So that kind of goes along with, your statement as skills. Some of these people that are in prison and costing us $200 to $300 per day, all they were doing before prison was growing marijuana, and they were probably very good at it. That's a skill that's going to be needed moving forward. Why not release them? So there's a whole lot of different, views on that. Joanne and I went back and forth. Her and I love the debate, by the way. And at the end, we hit knuckles and we call it. But Joanne, what do you think on that idea?
Well, I think they're already starting to think about it here in New York State. I mean, I've read about it, that's what they are intending to do. So
Okay.
yes, you're taking a skill that's in there, and as a matter of fact, these people are costing us money, where we could take that money and then have them do that. But I think I did read somewhere in Crane's Business Week a while ago that they are thinking of doing that, because basically these people are in prison because of something that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
good
it's
point.
interesting. This is one of those things that we just get used to spending money in the state and federal governments. We just get used to it, and we never think about what are we getting for our dollars. But the same thing with, you take $1 billion, whatever cruise missile, and you level a $10,000 village. How much goodwill could you have bought? How many allies could you have purchased by, building schools or, providing? You can win friends with the same price, as you can for destroying enemies. So listen, then again, there's bad guys that need to be destroyed. Yay. But we got to do what we have to do as a society to protect ourselves. But how are we spending our money? And we're not really good at that. By the way, I was a critic of the justice system too. I mean, the civil justice system especially takes so much time and so much energy and so much money just to get justice. And the whole point of the justice system is that you don't want people running around and settling scores with baseball bats, And so if the justice system is not accessible and affordable to people, then what are we left with? And, we have a situation, and Massachusetts is really no different than most states. New York, I know, has similar issues, where, you could be a 6-year-old child that's hurt by a defective product, and it could take until that child is through college before all of the judicial process is done. That's nuts,
That's like Niagara Falls.
Yeah. We just have
usually
to make justice available to people.
It does. It does. I actually was paralegal for a products liability, medical malpractice, plaintiff only law firm in the 70s. And it took a long time for the cases to go through. It still does. It's a little bit better in New York, not as much, like I'm listening to you, Judge, and I'm hearing things that, I was learning stuff. I was in the criminal justice system. I worked for the New York City Department of Probation in IT. And things haven't changed. And that was in the early 90s. And then it hasn't changed that much since the 70s. We were trying to be innovative. And it's just scary. I mean, there's the old saying, if we don't learn from history, it repeats itself. Right. So you don't have enough of these. There's so much waste where we could really be more productive with it.
Yeah. Totally agree. And what's interesting is there's this saying that, nobody believes a prophet from his own village, right? Like, that's just Frank or John or Joe. He's nuts, because his prophet's spouting off about something in the future. But I actually wrote a proposal to reform the Massachusetts civil justice system with some new rules to make it less expensive and faster. And New York adopted them. So not Massachusetts.
I'm ready to pass out. New York did something right.
Yeah, New York adopted the proposal for reform that I wrote for Massachusetts. But hey, listen,
how about that?
Was happy. Yeah. By the way, important thing. What's your dog's name? Because I'm a dog.
Oh, this is Macy, little under 5 months old, Boston Terrier.
Oh. What a kid. Hey, Boston.
That's why I brought her up.
Boston.
I waited 3 decades to get a Boston Terrier. It took that long. It's my dream dog.
Really? Really?
And
Oh yeah,
yep.
they're great. They're great dogs. Very
Oh,
smart dogs too. Hey,
yeah.
what can I say? It's Boston. I'm not going to argue with
Yep.
you.
I'm a Red Sox fan through and through. But I won't go with the football talk right now. I am a Bills fan. But anyways, with the last few minutes we have here, Judge, I wanted to ask you just a couple questions about you outside of the judicial system and all that. What do you like to do for fun on your free time when
Yeah.
you clock out, hang the robe up, or whatever you're doing now with the legal foundation? What do you like to do just to have a good time on the weekends? Like, what kind of hobbies do you have? I happen to like
Yeah.
coloring and play video games.
Oh, I gotta. I'll meet you online. So I'm 1 year into this new job. I run the New England Legal Foundation in
Right.
Boston, and it's for all of the Northeast. And so I'm just getting
Hmm.
my legs under me. So it's a lot of work. So I don't have a lot of free time, sadly. But my house is in when I'm not here in Boston, I'm out in the Outer Cape, Provincetown, Truro area of Massachusetts. And so I have a house that's got
Well,
the ocean 5 minutes in one direction and the bay 5 minutes in the other direction, not even 5 minutes. And so I have a yellow lab, and I love to go for morning walks in the beach. The sunset is on the bay side, the sun rises in the ocean side, and there's just beautiful woods in the national seashore. And just
hmm.
this past year, I discovered the joy of off-road, over sand off-roading. So
Oh,
I have a Ford F-250 bright red pickup truck.
oh yeah.
His name is Clifford, and the
Got to name your
Clifford the
vehicles, Joanne.
yeah,
I
Clifford the
guess
big
so.
red truck, Clifford the big red truck. And so
Okay.
That's awesome.
Clifford and I took on the dunes of the Outer Cape this summer, and it was a blast because you can take all your supplies with you right in the bed of the truck and go off to the far reaches where humans can't even go. It was just amazing, and sit and watch the seals. And I've never seen a shark yet, but we have a bunch of them apparently out there. So that's what I like to do in my downtime: that hiking, walking, and I just like
Good.
to do a lot of volunteering.
That's great. That's good to hear. So yeah, that's what I mean. Like that's where to learn a little bit about what you do as a human.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're in the judicial system, but you are a human. And I've had talks with Joanne about this, and that's where I think people don't understand that you're human. You have likes, dislikes. You like to do certain things. For me, I'm a video game guy. I like to write. I like to read books. I like to take my dog for walks. In the town I live in, it's one of the safest towns in the U.S. actually, and so I enjoy, doing the same things you do, except I don't go off roading with the Ford 250 because there's not too many spots around here to do that.
Right.
But Joanne, what's for you, Joanne? What question would you have for the judge right now that would be outside of the legal talk as human? Because I know that you're filled with questions.
I always question. Um, well, no, I like where you go and de-stress. That's my thing. I grew up at the ocean, so I just think it's so invigorating and just a wonderful thing to do. How else do you de-stress?
Gosh,
Yeah, well,
yeah, raising money for my nonprofit. So it's like my every time a check. We actually have down the hall. We have a victory bell. So every time we get a check in, we go out and we ring the bell. So this is the time of year when nonprofits are all just scrambling to make their year end budgets. So we've had a pretty good year, but we're concerned about next year. We've got an amazing team here and a really supportive board, and we have what we have called councils in each of our states. So we're it's funny. I took the job, and our focus is free enterprise
Wow.
and economic liberty and inclusive growth. And we're trying to set up free corporate legal clinics for
Wow.
entrepreneurs that cannot afford lawyers.
Oh, I
So
love it.
with a focus on
Sign.
women-owned business, veterans, college entrepreneurs, black-owned business, new Americans. New Americans come here, the most entrepreneurial. I learned this week. Do you know that there are more startup businesses in the United States every year than the next 9 countries combined?
I
That's
would
the
believe
People
it.
tell me the
uh,
American dream is dead. Don't believe them. It is not. It is alive and well, and we just have to make sure that we empower people to launch and to grab their piece of the pie and to lift themselves to prosperity. And so that's what we're about. We're actually going to have. I'll just give you one quick promo. I know we're running out of time, Frankie, but
Because then I wanted to interrupt and ask a question. Are you national or are you just from Massachusetts?
New England. We're all New England. The
So
6
you're all
states of
New
New England.
England.
Yeah. So if there's a fight anywhere in the United States that involves New England businesses, of course, we'll take a look at it. But one of the things that we're looking to do is, Boston is known as Beantown internationally,
No.
right? Yeah. Boston's known as Beantown. Do you know that there's nothing to celebrate beans in Boston except the Bean Pot hockey tournament for men, the Beantown hockey tournament for women, and then the Hasty Pudding Club gives out their Bean Pot award every year. That's it. There's nothing else. So next June 17th, in the Greenway in downtown Boston, we are going to produce the first annual Beantown Bean Fest, a celebration of everything bean. And what we love about it is that beans transcend every racial and ethnic line that exists in the city of Boston. Every neighborhood, every group in the city of Boston has their own taste, their own take, their own way to prepare beans. And so it's a real celebration of something that unites us all, this common love of, beans. The Yankees in, Beacon Hill have their baked beans, the Mexicans, rice and beans, the Haitians have a way to do beans, Jamaican beans. It's amazing what
beans.
Coffee beans. Did you know that jelly beans were invented in Massachusetts? We're going to have jelly beans represented. So we're really excited about it. And, as a nonprofit, just to be able to have fun and raise money for a good cause, we think is a win-win. Yeah.
Well,
so,
Judge, I'll tell you.
What can I say? I just go nuts about beans now.
I think that's wonderful, and congratulations on everything that you're doing with that, because you know what, it's not easy work running a nonprofit. I've volunteered some of my time volunteering here and there, and it's not easy work. And to what you're doing, and you don't have to do it, Judge. I mean, everyone knows that you can just retire and take it easy if you wanted to, but for what you're doing, I commend you, and I thank you for your work and your service, for a hard job. Joanne, thanks for your contribution for what you do. So we're all out of time, folks. Judge, thank you for being here. We thank everybody in the audience for making this a great finale. We'll be back with season 2 starting January 24th with a great guest. His name is Tyrone Dixon. But until next time, everybody, be safe, enjoy the holidays, and we will see you all on January 4th. Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye-bye.